Hi there. This YouTube video follows on from what Mr. Coles was talking about this morning with Pythagoras, and what you should have learnt this morning is if you've got a right-angled triangle like that, then what we know is the length of this side, which is called the hypotenuse, so we call it H, we call that side A and that side B. What we know is that the square of that is equal to the square of that add the square of that. So the little formula we've got is h squared equals a squared plus b squared. Okay, and that's a really useful formula. And what Mr. Coles was doing then is he said, we know the length of that, let's work out that. Okay? And what he also said is that you might get an exam question where you're actually asked to work out that side or that side if you know that and one of the other two. So let me just give you the example then. So the numbers might be different, but the way in which you work it out is exactly the same. I think in the exam that Mr. Cole showed you this morning, I think the scenario was something like you had a ladder resting against a wall, and obviously the ground then and the wall, because they built the wall properly, formed a right angle. Okay, so we've got a Pythagoras, a right angle triangle there. And what they said, I think it was a 5-meter ladder that they'd placed, I think it was 1.7 meters away from the wall. Obviously you don't rest the ladder right up against the wall unless you're Spider-Man and go straight up. So they rested it 1.7 meters away from the wall. What the question was asking then is, how high up that wall do you reach? Now really we're just basically asking, if this was a triangle, how long is this side? How far up the wall do you reach? So we don't know this one, so we'll call this one B. Okay, side B. How long is that? And what Mr. Coles told us this morning is that h squared equals a squared plus b squared. Okay, which is fine. Now, there's two ways in which we could work this out. I'll try and do them both quickly. Okay, I'll do it the easy way now. So we know that squared, h squared, so we know that 5 squared is equal to 1.7 squared plus b squared. We don't know what b is. Okay? So we know then that 25 equals 1.7 squared, which I think is 2.89 plus b squared. Okay? Now what we can do with this 2.89, we want all of the letters on one side, all of the numbers on the other side, like when we were doing algebra last week. So what I would say then is that 25 minus 2.89 equals b squared. And that would work out then at 22.11 equals b squared. And then I would know that if I did the square root of that, just give me b. If I do the square root of that, it'll also give, no, if I take the square root of both sides, it'll give me just b. So take the square root of b squared gives me b, and if I take the square root of 22.11, that'll give me b. And I think the square root of 22.11 is something like 4.7. Let me just check on my calculator. Calculator 22.11 square root 4.7021. So if I just take that then to 2 decimal places, 4.70. So b equals 4.70. And if I just plug it back in then, just to check I'm right, h squared, I'm saying that is 4.70. It's saying that h squared, so that's 25, equals 2.89 plus 4.7 squared is 22.11 plus 22.11. Do they add up? That's basically telling me that 25 equals 25, so it must be correct. Okay, so that the example then, how high up the wall can you reach? You can reach 4.7 meters up the wall. if I just take us back then the other way that you could have worked it out, the other way you could have worked out whichever you prefer. If we know that h squared equals a squared plus b squared, that's Pythagoras' theorem, that's his rule, then we could just rewrite that a little bit neater for us. We could say that a squared plus b squared equals h squared. Okay, so exactly the same thing, we just changed the sides around, okay? Equal side, just keep everything balanced, keep everything pointed to one side, do it the other, okay? Now, if I want to get b squared on its own, I could take away an a squared from that side. But like we learnt last week with the teddies in the kitchen, whatever you do to one side, you've got to do to the other side. So if I take a squared off that side, I've also got to take a squared off the other side. So b squared equals h squared minus a squared. So I know then that b squared equals 5 squared, 25 minus 1.7 squared, 2.89. I know that b squared equals 22.11, so b equals the square root of 22.11, which we said was 4.7. Now equally, just going back to that a squared plus b squared, if we wanted to find out what a squared was, we could just take b squared off both sides. So a squared equals h squared minus b squared. Okay?